Hey, what's up everyone? It's Mir, and I hope Street Fighter 6 has been treating you well, especially when it comes to anti-airing after the video from the other day. But I have more for you guys. In this one, I want to talk about more in depth about how to use every tool that your character has effectively to anti-air based on the screen position, our goals, plus a few execution tricks to make anti-air easier and more reliable so that you can use them more effectively in a match. We're going to look at a couple of characters fairly in depth, but all the notions in this video apply to all of the cast. So last time we used the built-in easy anti-air option practice that you find in the menu here, anti-air practice. However, to truly test anti-airs, you need to learn how to record them yourself. Now it's not rocket science, you just go to over here to recording settings and you see that I have some already recorded, and you can click on any of these slots and then you'll see you have control of the other character, and whenever you pause, then you can go to replay and turn them on, and then when you press your replay button, you'll see that they will do whatever it is that they're doing. With this knowledge, we can record anything we want. So let's say I want Ryu to do a jumping heavy kick, I record here the jumping heavy kick, and then say for example a little bit of blocking. Then I go here, I turn it on, and now Ryu will be doing his jumping heavy kick. As you might have noticed, I've recorded Ryu doing a jumping heavy kick that hits crouching opponents, and this is fairly important because otherwise you might get false positives when you're testing crouching anti-airs. So let's say I accidentally recorded a jump in that doesn't actually hit crouchers, something like this, it's very high in the air. Then when I go to turn it on, you'll see that it actually doesn't hit me. And as I was mentioning, this will give you the impression that some attacks like that crouching medium punch might be good anti-airs because it's like, oh, it hits Ryu right at the air, I even get a punish counter. However, these are not real anti-airs and you need to be careful with the recording. So you want to have something that hits crouching opponents just to have the best environment possible for testing. Street Fighter characters are very deliberately designed with certain strengths and weaknesses in mind, of course, and everyone has kind of like an optimum range where their grounded options are most powerful and where you want to spend most of your time. But that doesn't necessarily mean that your anti-airs have the same range, so it's important to realize how to best position yourself so that you can anti-air correctly. So let's look at Cammy today as a case study. She fits the archetype of the rushdown character, you know, she wants to be up close with you to pressure and do combos and stuff. And she has very high speed on the ground, which helps her reposition very effectively. So this lets her get close and be threatening, as well as spacing in neutral for whiff punishing, as that is a core part of her game plan. Because of this, you're mostly going to play in the mid-range, which is about this range where your pokes hit and you can move out of the way of attacks so that you can whiff punish them, with the intent of moving closer so that you can pressure your opponent and maybe throw them or whatever, because that's what your character is best at. And so we need to really know our options here as far as anti-airing is concerned, because this is the range where we're going to spend the most time at. Of course, this same concept applies to other character archetypes, it's just that the ranges where the best perform are different. So, for example, a zoner does better at long range than a rushdown character, and they're more comfortable here, and they usually have their kit built around this. So let's start with the obvious one here. Now, Cammy is a character with a Dragon Punch, it's her cannon spike. This should be your go-to anti-air because of its reliable nature. As many Dragon Punches in this game, it's air invulnerable, as I will demonstrate here. As you see, I hit Ryu out of the air very consistently. I can do it quite late and it will still work. It also gives you a knockdown and scores decent damage. As I mentioned in the previous video, a lot of these DP style anti-airs in Street Fighter 6 have invulnerability on all of their versions. But in the case of Cammy, the angles change based on the version that you choose. As you see, the heavier version goes further away. If the opponent is jumping in from the front, like at this range, heavy works best, as it does the highest damage and it covers that range very effectively, as you see, in particular if I'm a little bit further away. The light version instead is best when I'm playing at about this range when the opponent is close. I can demonstrate here, as it is very vertical. If I had done the heavy version, I would have gone under, as you can see right there. So it's very important that you use, you know, the right version for the job. So let's say I'm playing at about this range where I'm poking at my opponent, maybe trying to whiff punish them, trying to keep them at bay, and they end up jumping at the same time as I'm doing one of my pokes. Because of the DP being invulnerable like that, I'm able to actually anti-air them consistently, where a normal anti-air, even though it is fast, if I do it at the wrong timing, you see I might not have time and get hit instead. And this is the most important feature of Dragon Punches when it comes to these sort of characters. And this is a trademark of Shoto characters, which throw fireballs and then anti-air you if you jump at the wrong time. This is a common situation you'll see all the time. So now I want to explain a couple of execution tricks that are gonna be very handy here. So if you want to do a normal DP motion, especially if you're crouching, you'd have to do forward, down, down, forward, which means that you have to stand up because you have to press forward. However, this is not good for anti-airing because by doing that, you become a bigger target as you stand up and your hurt box increases in size. This gives you less time to anti-air, and sometimes when you're trying to anti-air from crouch, by standing up, you might screw up the input like that and get hit as you're trying to do a DP. However, there is a way to do a Dragon Punch from crouching with a convenient shortcut that I'm going to teach you right now. The game accepts down forward, down, down forward, and then whichever button it is for your Dragon Punch as a correct motion. And as you can see, I can do this motion while crouching. In fact, I can wiggle as much as I can, and you see the Kami doesn't move at all. And I'll demonstrate how it works right here. So I can also do it by hitting down back, for example, so you don't have to be super precise. The important part is that you're hitting down forward twice, and you can just sit here and wiggle until the opponent is jumping in, and you will do all of this crouching, which gives you more time to anti-air, as I'll demonstrate in a second. See how late I can do it and it still anti-airs correctly. This works with usually any motion like this. It doesn't actually have to be a Shoryuken type move, and in fact we can use this in combos to make them easier on us. Now the second trick is the famous Crosscut DP or Autocorrect DP, which makes it so that your Shoryuken comes out on the other side when an opponent crosses you over. And this is very convenient when you want to do an anti-air when someone is going over your head, as I just mentioned. It's useful for DPs because they're invulnerable and they have a knockdown, so it's a rewarding anti-air to do. There are three main methods that people tend to use, which is what I'm going to try and explain in this video. So let's go ahead and start with the first method here. So the first one looks something like this. As you can see, the input that I've inputted there is forward, down, down, back, and kick, as opposed to doing forward, down, down, forward. Basically, I'm completing the second half of the motion right as the opponent crosses me over. So I'll demonstrate again. As you can see, you don't actually have to do forward, down, down, forward precisely. You can kind of roll a half circle back after you do the forward. The important part is that you have to do it very quickly. This uses the game's buffer window to be able to do the uppercut on the other side. There's another variation of this method that we do while we're crouching, and it actually uses the DP shortcut from before as the reason why it works. It's the same exact motion, except we're starting from down forward instead of starting from forward. So I'll demonstrate how it looks in a second. Of course, normally you wouldn't be holding down forward, as that forgoes your ability to block. You can start from down back and then touch down forward and then do the down down back motion. The next method I'm going to show is the wiggle method, which is commonly used on wake up, but you can also use it in neutral. And as the name implies, you're kind of like wiggling directions. You're gonna hit down forward and then down back and then down forward, and keep doing this until you want to press kick, and then the DP will come out. This will give you a motion that is completely crouching if you're doing it in neutral. It doesn't matter as much on wake up, but this is important when you're not sure if an attack is going to cross you up as you are hitting it. As you can see there, it came out when it hit me in front and when it hit me in the back. You need to be careful, however, not to use this on a safe jump, because of course then your DP will be blocked and you're just gonna die. The third method is the delay method, and this basically means that you input the Shoryuken motion really quickly and then delay the attack button press to the very last moment possible so that it comes out on the right side as the opponent is crossing over your head. And you can do this with the crouching shortcut as well. You can do this with the wiggle shortcut if you want. There's a lot of ways of doing this, and this is technically the proper way of doing it, but I would say it's also the hardest. So if a DP can beat a jumping attack from front and back, why would you want to use a normal anti-air then? Well, we covered this in our basics anti-air guide, but first of all, the DP has a more complicated motion, of course. Say as opposed to pressing back medium punch or crouch heavy punch, I have to do this whole motion to get my DP out. Second, DPs are pretty obvious dead zones in Street Fighter 6. It means there are angles where they cannot hit at all, regardless of if it comes out forwards or backwards. And the third is that some normal anti-airs actually have better rewards than a DP, so if you're ready, you want to use them. So now as a case study, let's look at Cammy's normals. Again, always think of this as anti-airs in the context of the range in which they're being used. Basically, what should go through your head is that someone jumps at, a certain range, what are my options? Now the first one we have here is back medium punch. Back medium punch is a very fast normal that has good vertical reach, is very easy to use, as you can also do it from a back walk. You can actually hit it too early if you're not careful, and it's good for jumps above her head. The only big downside of this move is that the damage is kind of low, however. Because of all of these properties, this is best used as a reactionary anti-air because it's so fast when you're walking back. Because the hitbox is kind of thin, but because Cammy is fast, she can move into position where it actually does work, and it stops cross-up attempts early. You cannot do this too late, otherwise you're gonna get hit, as it cannot actually hit behind their head. It's just that it's very tall and it gets there very fast. Maybe you're sitting at this range trying to whiff punish something or whatever, and the opponent ends up jumping out. This is a perfect button to use in that sort of situation. There's a few moves that have similar coverage and uses, like for example Ryu's back heavy punch, Dhalsim's back medium punch, DJ's back heavy kick, Chun-Stenny medium kick. These are all great examples of moves that cover about this range above the character's head. Now let's say we're a little bit further away, we're about this range, and back medium punch is difficult to use at this range because it doesn't have very much of a horizontal range to speak of. Like, someone jumps in with an attack, yeah, that's good, it's gonna work. But for example, if someone jumps in with an empty jump, I'm just gonna whiff my attack and risk getting punished. So we need to look at our kit and see if there's anything else that we can use to cover the front then. Both back heavy kick and crouching heavy punch actually cover a similar range, so we're gonna look at those. So here's crouching heavy punch. It is pretty fast, as Cammy in general has very fast normals, has decent coverage, and is a fairly reliable anti-air unless it's very difficult to anti-air jump in. It has fairly decent damage being a heavy. It does have a weakness, however, and it's this big hurt box that comes out before the move is active, so if you're not careful, you can get hit actually from surprisingly far away, even from fairly early jump-ins. And this is fairly unique to Cammy, because it's to compensate for the fact that this anti-air has such good coverage horizontally and vertically. Most crouching heavy punches usually don't have that problem, but then again they also have less horizontal range, so it's a matter of balancing the character out. Again, many crouching heavy punches kind of cover this range. Often they have a little bit less horizontal range and better vertical range, and usually less specific timing as well. Back heavy kick is your high reward anti-air. It has better coverage over Cammy's head, and also you can do this while walking back, like back medium punch from before. It has less horizontal range than crouching heavy punch. As opposed to crouching heavy punch, you also have to stand up for this, so your hurt box is a little bit bigger, which in general means you have to do it a little bit earlier. It's not active for as long, so the timing is harder. However, if you do get this to hit, you get a full juggle combo. As you can imagine, this is your best choice for the reward, especially if you're ready for the jump, and ideally you want to land this every time, but don't get greedy. Reliability is more important in an anti-air, because if you screw it up, you risk a lot of damage as you're gonna eat a full jump in. Most characters tend to have juggle anti-airs of this type. Sometimes you have to cancel it, it depends on the character, and the ranges can also be different. Like for example, Ryu's standing heavy kick, JP's forward heavy kick, Luke's back heavy kick, Jamie's down into kicks. These are all great examples of anti-airs like this. Alright, so that pretty much covers the mid-range, but what if the opponent jumps from full screen away? Surely you think that they're safe, but luckily for Cammy anyway, she has access to an amazing standing heavy kick, which is fast, has long range, and actually has an anti-air hitbox for some reason. And thanks to her movement speed, it's actually pretty easy to get into range to anti-air with this, as I'll demonstrate right now. Now, admittedly, most people wouldn't be pressing buttons at that range. They would do an empty jump like that, but again, thanks to her movement speed, it's actually pretty easy to hit them out of the air. So this is a great normal to prevent people from doing jump-ins from full screen like that. These anti-airs are quite rare, and most characters actually don't have them, especially with the range that Cammy has here. Characters with fireballs usually tend to use them a little bit better than others, since opponents have a reason to jump over a fireball from full screen. Something like Gal's standing medium kick, Chun-Li's standing heavy kick, Zangief's standing heavy kick, or DJ's crouching heavy kick are great examples of long range anti-airs like these. If you expect the opponent to empty jump full screen, you can use any normal that you want, you know, as long as it reaches, but of course, these might not have anti-air hitboxes, so the moment the opponent starts pressing something in the air, you might get smacked, so you have to be careful and basically commit to the read that they're gonna empty jump. So now that we know how to deal with cross-up attempts from close, thanks to the Crosscut DP, jumps in the mid-range, and even full screen, that should cover just about everything, but there's actually still more that we can optimize. For example, what if someone's jumping out of the corner while we're pressuring? This is a common situation for rushdown characters, especially as they spend, a lot of time pressuring the opponent in the corner. You might be going in for a throw and they jump over your head, then you lose corner position. There's a couple of options you have here. Most notable one is that you can crosscut DP as they leave the corner. However, this is not very rewarding and you still lose corner position. So you have some other options here. Unfortunately, back medium punch and back heavy kick are not going to be too useful in this situation because we're not in a position where we can readjust to a range where they would work. So like something like this, for example, you see how I'm just not the right range and I get hit by Ryu on his way out of the corner. So is there anything we can do in this situation? Some characters like Kimberly or Ken, they have some mobility options, like for example the run here. And they can cancel their anti-airs into this mobility option to maintain the corner, so it would look something like this. If the opponent has a weak cross-up, like for example a jumpy light kick, these tend to have, smaller hitboxes, so it's a little bit harder for them to hit you. You can move out of the way, especially if your character has a good movement speed, and actually punish the landing recovery. And some characters like Cammy have side switch combos that they can use in this situation. If you're another character that doesn't have these side switch combos, what you can do is, because they whiffed a button in the air, they will have some frames of landing recovery, and you can actually throw these landing recovery frames and put them in the corner. Thanks. And if you've done it correctly, you'll score a punish counter throw like that, otherwise they might be able to avoid it by teching. However, all of these are kind of imperfect solutions. We want to hit them in the air before they leave the corner. This is where air-to-airs come into play. Cammy luckily has access to an air throw that doesn't switch sides. You can do this from a jump back, a neutral jump, or a forward jump. It will always come out. And as you can see here, if I set the opponent to jump, the throw keeps them in the corner, so this gives us good position. The damage is alright, it's 1200, it's not particularly high, but it is better than, say, for example, hitting someone a back medium punch. Because you can do air throws from back jumps like this, you actually don't need to be that far from the opponent to be able to react in time and actually throw them. So a great example would be at a range like this, I can react to the jump and still anti-air with my air throw. If you have a character that has a side switch air throw, like for example Jury here, you'll see that the air throw switches sides like that. You can actually use it in the same situation, but you need to apply it a little bit differently, because what we are going to do is basically you're going to wait until the opponent has crossed us over, and then we're going to meet them in the air and our air throw them back into the corner. So as you can see, this is best for when you're point blank to the opponent, and this is particularly important with Jury as you have a very long dash. So very often you end up on the other side of the opponent when they're jumping over you, and you can use that to put them back in the corner. Of course, another use for these sort of air throws is that you can use them defensively in the corner to put the opponent back in, and then use that to your advantage to continue pressuring right afterwards. A little reminder that Guile has two air throws, both a backwards and a forwards one, and you do that by holding back or forward when you input the air throw. And so he actually has access to all of his options here. So if someone tries to jump up the corner, you can jump back, meet them in the air, and do a forward throw. If someone jumps over your head, you can meet them in the air and put them back in the corner. Of course, you can use it defensively if you yourself are cornered to put the opponents back in there. So in general, he has a lot of versatility when it comes to air throws. Going back to Cammy and talking about other air-to-air options, we have here our jumping medium punch, which is actually cancelable. However, the restrictions on jump moves still apply, so if I anti-air something from a back jump like this, unfortunately, I am not able to cancel into the dive kick, because the dive kick can only be done from a forward jump. Even though in that sense it is a little bit more restrictive because we need the forward jump, it can be very rewarding, especially if we decide to spend meter right afterwards for a combo. Some characters can actually do a jump back medium punch or what have you and cancel into a move because again it's the restrictions on the moves. So in the case of Blanca, he has an air ball that he can do from a back jump. Interestingly, he has switched positions here, but there's other characters like Chun-Li that can do a level 1 from a back jump, and you can use that to your advantage in situations like these to anti-air from closer ranges that the opponent might not expect. Another use for this jumping medium punch is that if you happen to jump at the same time as the opponent, you react to them jumping with you, you can use jumping medium punch to hit them in the air. And in this situation, you can see that I have more time to juggle because I'm falling a little bit sooner, so I can follow up with a combo. Some other characters have air target combos, and you can also do these from any jump. So in the case of Lily, I have jumping medium punch, as you can see here. And I could do that from a back jump, I can do it from a neutral jump, I can do it from a forward jump. And in fact, in some cases, I only get a combo if I do them from the proper jump like that. The reward on these air target combos is potentially quite high, as I was showing with this Lily target combo here. And it's usually higher than your grounded anti-airs, but you'll have to basically be more aware of the jump when you're going for these target combos, as you're not actually beating the jumping attack, but you're rather meeting them in the air before they can perform any action. So that covered about everything for Cammy as far as anti-airs are concerned. I mean, these are a lot of different anti-airs, all with their own unique use. You have the air throw, you have the jumping medium punch, all the ones on the ground. But not every character is blessed with a lot of anti-airs though. So now we're gonna go over to a character that might have some trouble anti-airing people. So of course I picked Marisa here, and the reason why her anti-airs are a little bit suspect is because she actually has very strong ground game. She has long reaching normals that she can charge, she has armor on attacks, you know, like really high reward when she hits you, very good pokes. So to compensate for this, the balancing act that Capcom was playing basically is that her anti-airs are a little bit more specific, or they're slow, which means that you have to commit to go for the actual anti-air as opposed to being able to do it on reaction as you whiff buttons on the ground. So first we have Crouching Heavy Punch, which is a tall anti-air, and it actually has a pretty good hitbox, and it works fairly reliably, knocks down on hit. However, it has big problems when people are crossing you up, as it doesn't actually cover behind their head very well. You'll see, yeah, in situations like those, it just straight up loses. And because Marisa's bad movement speed, it's really difficult to put yourself in a situation where you can anti-air effectively on reaction. In theory, you can charge this to get a combo as an anti-air, but it's really difficult. You have to be so fast to be able to do it. And, you know, it's not something that you want to risk, especially when you can just get hit in the face and die. The next move we have in line here is the Macaros, quarter circle back punch, which by the way is the name of a type of Roman gladiator that fought with two swords, so that's an interesting homage from Capcom to the ancient Romans, but anyway, I digress. The light version and the OD version are both air invulnerable, however they're quite slow, 12 and 16 frames respectively. The reward on the light version is not even that high. It's very comparable to a DP. 1320 is about normal. However, the OD version can potentially do a lot of damage and, you know, be very rewarding. So there's that at least, but it also is an investment in meter. Unfortunately, this move moves Marisa forward a little bit, which makes it very difficult to anti-air cross-ups at certain ranges, in particular with the light version. With the OD version, it's a little bit easier, but you can still screw it up, especially if it's a close jump like that. So this is not really an option that we can use to stop cross-ups as Marisa. So the next one is fairly interesting because we're going to talk about Gladius. Now this is a move you wouldn't expect to be an anti-air, but it can actually be by basically armoring through the jump in and hitting the landing recovery like that and scoring a punish counter. The damage, as you saw, is quite good, but unfortunately it has specific timing, so if you're not careful or you pick the wrong version, you might not be able to punish the landing recovery effectively, and you might get this blocked, which makes it unsafe. In that case, I didn't score a punish counter, which means that Ryu could have blocked that. It is also vulnerable to empty jumps, as to get the armor you have to hold the Gladius, which means if they don't press any attack in the air, you cannot react to it and let go, and you can get thrown for it. And you see I get counter hit. Marisa has a command parry, which is the Scutum, and the OD version is even frame 1, so you can actually use it sort of like a DP, where if you whiff a normal and then you do the parry, you can anti-air an opponent. So I can show how the parry behaves. When you hit someone in the air, you get the body shove and it knocks them down. The OD, also same thing. Unfortunately, the reward is kind of low. However, this is sometimes the only option that you have. So you're probably thinking, oh, then we want to use this against cross-ups. However, sometimes it does that, which is not ideal in the least. In case it wasn't apparent enough, this of course is an intentional weakness, and it is designed this way so that Marisa can not just spam normals in the mid-range forever and not worry about their spacing at all, as she has both bad movement speed and more restrictive ranges on her anti-airs, so that gives you more leeway to play against Marisa, because if she's being very oppressive in the ground game, you can approach her from the air and probably have an easier time jumping in on her. But the question now becomes, well, if I'm a Marisa player, what should I do to deal with this weakness? As I just hinted at, fundamentally the problem is spacing, which is, you know, easier said than done. It's not that easy, in particular when you have bad movement speed, to try and position yourself correctly. So we have some stopgap solutions here. If the opponent approaches with a cross-up, something like this, and you're not the right range for crouching heavy punch or the Macaros, you can try to jump back jab and meet them in the air. Another option that you have here is your jump medium punch target combo that you can use in the same vein. And you need to be a little bit aware for this to work, because of course you're not actually beating the jump in the air as you would with, say, a crouching heavy punch, but you're just trying to stop them before they press any button. And you can do this from a forward jump as well if you want. Another thing that you can attempt to do is to perfect parry the jump in. Now, I know that sounds crazy, parrying jump ins has never been a good idea, but it actually has some uses in Street Fighter 6. So one thing that happens when you perfect parry a jump in is that very often you can hit the landing recovery of the attack and score a punish. As you see, I scored a punish counter, which means that the opponent couldn't block that, and I can do a more optimized combo to score more damage there. If you parry a jump in high in the air, you can also throw the opponent and you will score a punish counter throw, which means you will score a hard knockdown and some extra damage, even though it is still scaled because of the perfect parry. This of course doesn't just apply to Marisa. Sometimes perfect parrying a jump in can be worth it, especially if it's right after you whiffed something big. Maybe you don't have a DP style move, or maybe your DP style move is too slow. This is also a pretty good way of dealing with safe jumps. It gives you back your turn, however you never have a guaranteed punish on a safe jump, so you just need to take the frames and do something with that. Of course, don't take away from this and saying to parry all jumps, as it is still risky, especially if the opponent goes for an empty jump. If I go for the parry, I get punish counter and I get, you know, hard knockdown throw. So this is an idea that you can use only sometimes, especially if you really think that the opponent is committed to pressing a button in the air. But it is an option to keep in mind nonetheless, especially, again, if your character has some questionable anti-airs as part of their kit. Hopefully this covers most of everything when it comes to anti-airing. Just like any topic, there's always more to say. I could spend hours talking about, the perfect ranges and all the options that the different characters have, but this should be more than enough to give you the tools to understand how to use your own character and which anti-airs to pick and choose, especially if you go online and maybe look up the hitboxes to see exactly which ones are the anti-airs that you should pick. If you like guides of this sort, we have plenty more on our channel and we have plenty more that we want to release. So if you want to subscribe, that'd be highly appreciated. Of course, leave us a comments down below telling us if we did a good job, and if you have any suggestions about what to do next, if you have any topics that you'd like us to cover. And I guess I'll see you all in the next video, guys. Bye bye.